Yeah.
I don't have to be like, oh, tell your mouth to laugh, Jude. You know, like.
About my mid-30s, because that's when I decided that I did not want children. And that really surprised my two kids, y'all.
Hey everybody, welcome. I'm Tiata and this is Tiata to You. Thank you so much for joining us on the Tiata to You podcast. Today in the studio I have June Colson, also known as Junebug.
That's right.
She is a Christian comedian who uses her gift of comedy to heal through ministry. So I want to say thank you, first of all, for being my guest today. How are you?
I'm good. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for inviting
You're
me.
welcome. You're welcome.
I love getting to hang out with another Kentucky friend.
I know.
We're right here in Kentucky together. So why not be together in the same space? It's good to be face to face and not on a virtual podcast.
I know.
I love getting to be here with you.
Well, that actually leads into my next question. It's a little bit about where you're from.
Yes. Okay. So I'm from Bowling Green, Kentucky, which is, we're here in Louisville, but I'm about an hour and a half south of here, halfway between Louisville and Nashville, Tennessee. So I do a lot of stuff in Nashville. A lot of people think I'm a Nashville comedian because of my connection to Nashville, but I'm actually in a small town in between called Bowling Green. But I was born northeast of Indianapolis. So my dad worked for General Motors, worked for the Corvette plant in Bowling Green. He was transferred when I was 10 years old. So I tell people I'm a hoobilly. So I'm part Indiana Hoosier, part Kentucky hillbilly. So I'm a hoobilly living in Bowling Green. So
that.
yeah, that's my family, my brother, my sister, and I moved there when I was a kid, and we just love Kentucky, just stuck around. So yeah, that's where I'm from. That's where I'm based out of.
So I hear you talking about your brothers and your sisters. How many siblings do you have, and where are you in that lineup?
This is a fun story. So I used to be the middle child.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And then they did this thing called DNA testing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. We gained another sister.
Oh, nice.
We did. And I talk about it on stage.
Okay.
Her name is Leslie. We met her about 5 years ago. The thing that people find most interesting about me is my dad's name is Hot Dog. Hot Dog. You heard me. It's Hot Dog. That's all he's answered to for like 30 years is the name Hot Dog.
Oh, wow.
So when a lot of people are like, how'd you get into comedy? I'm like, I was raised by a man named Hot Dog. Really, where else was I going to go, you know? But yeah, so growing up, it was my big sister, Bobby Joe, my little brother, Dewey. Those are all real names too.
Oh, wow.
And Junebug in the middle. So I was a middle child. And then 5 years ago, we discovered my little sister, Leslie. So I'm still kind of in the middle, but it's now my brother Dewey and I are in the middle.
Okay.
Leslie is now the baby.
Oh.
And Bobby Joe still holds the position of
the oldest. Okay.
So we're probably not going to do any more DNA testing because she don't want to lose her spot. You know, she likes still being that person. So yeah, that's where I'm at. I have the middle child syndrome times 10,000.
I was going to ask you about that. So is that true with the middle child syndrome? Is that, what was your experience with that? You
know what? I joked about it in the past, but I truly do believe that birth order definitely makes a difference in people's personalities. Yeah. And my little brother was born 17 months after me. And my mom had a miscarriage, and then she was pregnant with my little brother. And so she had 2 kids in diapers. Like I literally, I'm a magician. Like I just disappeared. I was just the baby that disappeared. And so I think that was part of my personality, to be loud and silly and make jokes and be seen, because you do kind of disappear. But it's also, I feel like, for me as a middle child, I've always been that middle person for people and personalities between my mom and dad. I grew up with my mom. Her mother was bipolar. My mom had bipolar tendencies and had a lot of just social issues and things like that. Very tense environment in my home. My dad, Hot Dog, has been an addict of some form my whole life, between drug addiction and other addictions. alcoholism, those kind of things. And so I would always be that kid who was like, my mom would laugh really easily.
Yeah.
So I'd tell the jokes and do the thing, and it would calm the room down. And my brother and my sister personalities are polar opposite.
Yeah.
So even as an adult, I feel like I'm the balance point between them.
Yeah.
And then even in friendships, relationships, or whatever, it feels like God continues to put me in this middle position. And I think, comedy is a place where we're on stage and we're seen. And a lot of people get the idea of like, that's the attention we desire.
Yeah.
But I really think it's just a skill set that we have to balance out a room and to be aware of a room. And so I don't know, I think there's a reason God placed me right there in the middle. Yeah.
So were you considered like the class clown in school, or was that more of just around the people that in your family that you were more familiar with, or did that carry over into every group?
That's a good question. I tell people that when God called me into comedy, so I grew up low-income housing, government housing. At a certain point, we lived next door to a strip club.
Okay.
We moved from that location. Well, before that, we were living above drug dealers, drug addicts. Then we moved next door to the strip club. Then we moved from there next door to some of the biggest dealers in the county that I lived in. Rundown house, trailers, just life was a little bit crazy. So I had used comedy as a defense mechanism, because I do a joke about growing up poor, that what I felt gave away my poverty is I never had a winter coat, never had good tennis shoes.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And so I got resourceful. I found that if I made the local cheerleading squad, that they would actually give you both, the jacket and the pair of tennis shoes.
Okay.
So I was always looking for a way to, I say as a middle child, we are chameleons as well. I would always find a way. I didn't want to stand out, I didn't necessarily want to fit into everybody's mold, but I just wanted to blend.
Yeah.
And so comedy became a protective device for me. So, when somebody would bully, when somebody would have something to say about our house or my shoes or my hair or whatever, I could beat them to the punch. I could make fun of me before they could make fun of me.
Okay.
And I could shut them down, especially boys.
Yeah.
And I tell people that I didn't start as a clean comedian.
Okay.
It was not clean. I mean, you don't grow up next door to strip clubs and have an alcoholic dad named Hot Dog and a socially awkward mother named Mo, and be surrounded by clean language, and it was pretty rough. So that's how I joked. That's how I played, but I used it as a defense mechanism.
Yeah.
So I wasn't, I always made my friends laugh, but I wasn't necessarily the class clown. I also, in the same vein, I kind of I got in trouble for talking too much.
Yeah.
But I also wasn't trying to get the attention on me and get myself in trouble either.
Right.
I was just trying to get through the day, every single day. So, I tell a lot of comics, especially Christian comedians, you'll find a lot of them that they were secular comedians that were, they did blue comedy, dark comedy before, and then, God saved their lives and they changed their stage persona. I say my stage was at the, waiting for the school bus. My stage,
really?
That's when I wasn't a clean comedian.
Okay.
By the time God got a hold of me and wanted me on the stage, then, I didn't have to use it as a weapon anymore. It became that tool that he was using. So
Okay. So you would say your background more or less set the stage for your current comedy and the way that you present it now. God allowed you, even in your own space of what you were going through at that time, to just understand more about yourself, because he knew what he was going to do with you a little bit later. Yeah. So tell us a little bit more about that family dynamic with your siblings. Like with your siblings, you being the one that's funny, were you the one that was able to get everybody out of trouble? Was there?
I could definitely distract and get people out of trouble. I would tell people a lot of times I feel like I'm the least funny in my family.
Oh,
like
really?
My dad
wow.
was hilarious.
Oh,
I mean, my dad, he's super funny.
Okay.
My little brother is one of the best storytellers that you're ever going to meet. And my sister she's like my mom. She just has an amazing sense of humor. My mom would laugh at everything. It didn't matter. If it's a knock-knock joke, she's going to giggle at it.
Okay.
You know, she would laugh at anything. And so when God called me into comedy, I'm like, Hot Dog would have been a great comedian.
Oh,
you know,
really?
my little brother Dewey, he is a
wow.
comedian. He's a police officer. You know, it's a very serious job. But when people talk about him, they talk about his heart for his community, and then they talk about how funny he is, you know.
Okay.
And I think laughter breaks up fear for people.
It does.
And it gets people to, you know, drop their guard and relax a little bit, you know. And for us, that's how, not long ago, I was sitting across the table with my dad. He had open heart surgery. He was staying at my home, and we were talking about comedy, you know, and he knows, but a lot of my bits are about him. He's a character in my comedy, you know. But he said, you know, we've always used comedy to smooth out the rough spots.
Yeah.
And there's been some rough spots, you know. And so my brother, my sister, and I, we always had that together. We love to laugh together. We love to cut up together. But it is that thing that we have used sometimes as a mask, you know, to cover up things, and other times just to make life digestible, you know?
Right.
So, yeah, but I'm super close with my brother and my sister and my new baby sister. You know, she's one of those, she came in, we met her, you know, we connected, made a plan for her to come to meet Dad in person, to meet all of us in person. And she's a big part of our lives. You know, it's crazy to have somebody who's like, you know, 50% of their DNA comes from 50% of your DNA.
Yeah.
When she smiled, my sister has one little dimple on her cheek. Leslie has one little dimple on her cheek. You know, she makes chili with macaroni in it. We make chili with macaroni in it. Yeah, she went mushroom hunting in Indiana. Like, that's a thing she did when I grew up there. That was a thing we did. You know,
Nice.
There's all these things that are in common with somebody out there that God knew, you know, that was our sister. We just didn't know. And immediately we got to connect with Leslie and her children, and, you know, and they're a big part of our life too. So
Now, does she have a funny bone as well?
She has a good sense of humor. She is a more serious person. She's very quiet. I did a show in Michigan last year, maybe a year and a half ago. Did a show in Michigan. And her home in Indiana was the halfway point between the gig, right?
Okay.
So I was like, well, I'll go up a day early. And then I was like, do you want to come? Do you want to work the merch table? You want to sell my T-shirts and just chill out at the, you know, event or whatever? And she was like, sure, you know. But she's much more introverted, much more reserved than we are, but hilarious.
Yeah.
Like that sharp wit that like you don't see it coming wit, you know.
Maybe a little more dry humor.
Yes, much more dry humor. And so she spent, you know, about 48 hours with me and 3 other comedians.
Oh, wow.
And you could tell, like, it was emotionally draining for her. She's like, I don't know how you're doing all of this and all the people. And, you know, she was standing at the merch table, but even just the crowd. And I think that particular show, there was probably 400 or 500 people at that show. And so when they were all in the lobby, like, that was a lot for her, you know.
Okay.
But she's that low key, you know, you don't see it coming funny.
Yeah.
And she's the person who, her text messages, the memes she sends me and that kind of stuff, that's what's making me laugh.
Okay.
As comedians, we don't laugh a lot out loud.
Oh, really?
Because you would think. I have to force myself. Like, I'm the worst audience member because when my friends are up, one, I know all their bits. Like, we've been writing together and all of that stuff. So I know what's coming.
Okay.
And the element of surprise is what makes you laugh. You know, like originally as a baby, the first thing babies giggle at is that peekaboo, right?
Wow.
It's that element of surprise. So you lose that element of surprise when you know, it's like, I think a magician watching a magician, it's probably like that because I know the tricks.
Yeah.
Or you're trying to figure out where they're going.
Yeah.
I don't have to be like, oh, tell your mouth to laugh, Jude. You know, like encourage your comedy friends. Some of my comedian friends are great about that, but we're analyzing the whole time, you know.
I can imagine.
So the stuff that makes me laugh is the silly text, you know, from my little sister. Like, that's what makes me laugh.
And you said that you guys met her this past year. How long ago was that?
No, it's been, I think it's been almost 5 years now.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Nice. What was that transition like? Just finding out you had a new sister and her coming in. I know you said she fits right in. Did that happen automatically? Did you take a little getting adjusted to? Was there some familiarity about her? You're like, hey, I see myself, you know, in this young lady. How did that kind of transition?
That's a great question. You know, when she first came to the house, it's a situation you got to be very delicate about.
Exactly.
First of all, Dad's name is Hot Dog.
Okay.
He was not a real faithful man to our mom, growing up. So we were very aware that they were girlfriends, and there was a shot there was somebody out there.
Okay.
You know what I mean? My sister and I were more convinced of it. But none of us had ever done DNA testing. We had never done that. So to find out that he had a child with another woman somewhere, surprising to get the news, but not shocking and not unexpected, right? He had always lived his life pretty much untethered.
Yeah.
Right. And so it wasn't surprising that she was out there, but it was like, oh, wow, like this is real, you know? I told her in our first conversation, I was like, listen, you didn't like hit the genetic lottery, okay? Your daddy's name is Hot Dog. He drives an El Camino. He ain't got a dime to his name. He smokes like a freight train, drinks like a fish. Like, if you want to run. But I'm like, other than that, you got a big sister, Bobby Joe. You got a little brother, or you got a brother named Dewey, and I'm Junebug. My sister's a teacher. My brother's a police officer. And I'm the comedian that's in charge of my dad's medication. And I have ADHD. I'm not really sure which either one of us are taking like the right stuff. I may be taking heart medicine this morning, and he's on my Adhd pills. I don't know why they trust me with it. But I'm like, this is what you're getting into,
She's a natural.
But my mother was alive when Leslie, the discovery that Leslie was our sister, and my mom, I said she stopped developing socially about 12 years old. Academically intelligent, but she processed life like a 12-year-old. And she had suffered a lot of abuse. She was removed from her home when she was 12. And I remember when Dad told us, we were just kind of, processing what he had just said. And the first thing my little brother said was, how's Mom? Because he had already, he realized what Dad said is you have a little sister, which means... this was an extramarital affair. This was not someone who was older than us. This is someone who existed before us.
Right.
Or after us, right? And I went out to, sit with my mom, and my mom was so childlike in her thoughts, and her whole attitude. I say my mom was such a great example of how to forgive. She had a big sun hat on. She was sitting at the table by my swimming pool, and I went out and I said, well, how we doing? And she's like, I'm fine. And it was my dad's birthday when he told us.
Oh, wow.
She goes, I'm fine, but it'd be better if you brought me some cake. Like, what? I'm like, well, no, like the news, Mom.
Yeah.
How are you about the news? And she's like, 30-something years ago. Am I supposed to be mad now?
Yeah.
And then she's like, she's got kids. I got more grandbabies. I'm going to find out what color they like. I'm going to crochet them a blanket.
Oh, wow.
Anyway, so where's the cake? Like, that's how my mom processed the whole thing. She's like, where's the cake at? Because her and Dad had already just talked about it.
Yeah. He
had shared with her. They had come to whatever place of forgiveness they needed to be. At that point, my mom she could just switch it on and off. She just moved, she had moved on. And so Leslie's biggest concern was she didn't want to cause a problem in their marriage. She didn't want us to be angry or upset.
Yeah.
And we all had an opportunity to speak to her before she came to Kentucky to let her know. And I really don't think for us it was a difficult transition because we were already a family unit. We had been living life together, But one thing about my mom and dad, we never had anything, but they would always give what they had to anybody who needed it. And there were people my whole life that were part of our family, that we called Uncle this or Aunt that or whatever, people that my family just embraced. They were never a real judgmental group of people. If they had something to give, they would give. And so that's one thing that I told her. I said, we treat strangers like their family.
Yeah.
So there's no way we're not going to treat family like their family. And so that's, that was kind of the transition.
I love that because other people have similar stories. We've actually had family members that we've met within the past few years through DNA testing, and we were able to welcome them in and just really gain some loved ones. So just listening to how well you guys just bonded, I mean, I think that's a testimony to many of us. I also wanted to ask you a bit more just about your dad. I hear his personality, Hot Dog. Do you relate more to your dad as far as that comedy? You think that's kind of a chip off the old block type deal, or?
Oh man, I definitely get my sense of humor from my dad.
Okay.
He's always been super funny and very creative.
Okay.
You know, my mom passed away. He's always done woodworking. He's always created things.
Okay.
He made this angel out of a piece of wood where somebody cut a tree down, and he carved this beautiful angel out of it. He makes wacky and wild engineering things. You know, it's just kind of crazy, wild stuff. And I was at an event, and I heard someone just say this sentence, and it didn't even have to do with what she was talking about, but the sentence stuck with me so hard. She said, you can grieve creatively.
Oh.
And yeah, and my dad had a lot of dark times in the back and addiction, and you know, like I said, his past was full of all kinds of stuff. But I think he used his creativity and his humor sometimes as an expression of grief.
Yeah.
Of the things that he couldn't express with words, and so that's what he would do. But he was always a storyteller, and I also watched with Mom what would calm her down because of the bipolarism, the rage that she would go into, the just out of control that she would get. He could diffuse that if he could make her laugh.
Oh.
Yeah. And so I definitely watched that.
Yeah.
And learned that comedic skill from him.
Yeah.
My little brother picked up on it even, you know, because I'm like, God, if you were calling somebody to be a comedian, like my little brother's the funniest in the family. He's the one to do it. But for whatever reason, you know, he chose me to do that. But I'd learned it for sure from watching Dad. And then when Mom passed away, I watched him get even more creative. He's always creating something, making something, you know.
Yeah.
And so I think that I'm like that. I use comedy to get through hard times, grief, you know, and then also it's a gift that you get to give to other people. When you walk away and you've got to make people laugh, you know what that leaves people with. Whenever they're like, oh man, I can't breathe, you know, I can't, whatever. And you'll hear people say, man, I just needed that. I needed that. Because it's such a release. But I 100% say when people are like, who's your favorite comedian? And I'm like, okay, well, I love Fozzie Bear on the Muppets.
Okay.
Like, Waka, Waka. He was my favorite character. Yeah. That tells you anything. And then my dad, Hot Dog. Hot Dog has always been
I love that.
the funniest person to me.
Yeah.
And his timing, ridiculous. I wish I was half the comedian that my family members are.
What a compliment. So, did you know when you were young that you wanted to be a comedian as you got older? Or is that just something that you kind of fell into? How did that work?
Oh, yeah. So when I was young, I wanted to be an airline stewardess.
Okay.
That's what they were called back then. I guess it's flight attendant now.
Yeah.
Because I got a Barbie book that was, Barbie was a flight attendant.
Oh, okay.
In this book. And she helped a little girl who was crying and everybody loved Barbie. And I didn't think, because of the way I grew up, I thought, I'm never going to be in a plane. I'm never going to fly, right? And so I read this Barbie book and I'm like, she's tall, she's blonde, I'm tall, I'm blonde. I like to help people. That maybe I'll get to do that, and then I can ride an airplane. So I was always being creative about like, what did I want to do, and what's a creative way to get to that, right? So that was my initial dream. Then in middle school, I had a teacher named Miss Ross, and I had interrupted her class about 13 times.
Okay.
Chatting, right? And I found out that day that like the 14th was her breaking point. You know, it's enough already. And I was expecting her to send me, you know, out of the room immediately. But this time she like called me up to the front of the class. And she said, Junebug, she said, I've taught long enough to know that kids usually like to do most what they think they can do the best.
Yes.
And she's like, we've all voted in the teacher's lounge. Like, you're the best talker that's ever been in the Warnets Middle School.
Okay.
And I was like, thank you, Miss Ross.
Okay.
Yeah, she's like, not a compliment, babe, not a compliment. Right? She's like, no, listen. She said, what I would think you need to know is that you could actually make money talking. And I was like, what? Like, I'd be a millionaire if that was true, right? As much as I talk. And she's like, no, like, you can do public speaking, television, radio, broadcasting. And then she told me the best spot to think about that was in detention. She did go ahead and kick me out of the room, right? But I remember that conversation going, wait, you can make money? You can make money talking. So that was on my radar. And then I went on a field trip to a radio station, and they were actually looking for someone to do the voice of a little girl on a melanoma, that's skin cancer, a melanoma commercial. And that was my first voiceover gig. I did it. Yeah, bizarre, but that's what I did.
You have melanoma, call this.
Yeah. It was my mommy's got a mole, or whatever. I'm not sure what it was, but I remembered it was melanoma, and I had to say the word melanoma. And the DJ it was a Christian radio station. The DJ at the radio station was like, "Man, you need to be doing this one day," And I was like, "Okay." Yeah. And I grew up as that little girl who I was the middle child. I did kind of disappear. I never thought I was really good at anything. And the one thing I did the most was the thing that got me in trouble all the time, right? Because I talked all the time. Yeah. I also didn't understand ADHD. That wasn't a thing back then. Right. And so, I just, that was kind of thing. I was like, oh, I want to work in radio. So when I graduated high school, no one in my family had ever gone to college. And I had saved up money. By the time I was a senior in high school, I was working 2 jobs. And I was only going to school for 45 minutes a day. I got enough credits, and I was going to work.
Like a co-op type?
Yes, I was going to work early. And I'd saved up enough money that I had found this curriculum to learn how to work as a radio DJ. Wow. And I went to a local radio station, and there was a couple guys working there. And I was like, hey, this is my situation. This is what I want to do. I don't have money to go to college, but I got $1,500 that I've saved. I will pay you guys to teach me to do what you do. And they were like, what I didn't know is I could have probably just said, I'll be an intern and work for free. And they'd be like, okay. And they're like, $1,500, sign her up, right? So they took my money, but they spent time with me, and they taught me how to do the voiceovers. And, back then it was still the 8-track for the commercials. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I was popping 8 tracks and doing voiceovers and those kind of things. And so it always been like a performance thing. I did musicals in high school, and I loved that. I always felt the most free when I got to be creative, and I loved music, and I'm not a good singer, not in my head, right? In the shower, I am belting it out. It's beautiful, but if you really hear me, it's not good. I tried to sing in the backyard sometimes, and we had neighbors named Russell and Billy, and they would just come out and heckle me when I would be in the backyard, walking through the garden singing whatever song. But yeah, so those were the aspirations. Comedy was not on, I loved watching comedy. Yeah. I still love watching comedy. If somebody's like, hey, have you seen such and such series, or have you watched whatever movie? I don't watch scary things, intense things, sad things. Yeah. Because I was telling you earlier, I dream multiple dreams a night. One year I did a diary of my dreams, and I had up to 11 in one night. Oh, wow. 6 to 7 was usually the average. And I go from dream to dream to dream. So whatever I'm putting in my imagination, it's going to come out in my dreams at night. And so I have to be very guarded about what I watch or listen to. Okay. And so I always love the escape of comedy. And any of the shows in Living Color, SNL, the sketch comedies, those kind of things, I've loved that.
Well, you're a Carol Burnett fan.
Oh my gosh, love Carol Burnett. I love Lucy. I love Lucy. Physical comedy. My
mom's favorite.
Yeah. Any physical comedy. Absolutely love that. And so that was always something I had a love for. Yeah. But I never had a desire I'm gonna be a stand-up.
This is what I want to do when I grow up.
I'm gonna be a stand-up. But that was God's idea. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. It was His idea. It literally was a moment in church in 2017 where I sat down. I was putting all my stuff, in the pew and in my seat, because I'm a Baptist. We have a seat, my seat. No. And nothing had happened. There was no music that was playing. There was nothing dramatic going on. And I say there's a few times in my life where I got a message so clear from God that there was no way to deny He just spoke to my heart. Yeah. And this is one of I have probably 4 or 5 in my life that you will never convince me any different than God said what He said. Yeah. And I know He was speaking directly to me. And so all I heard was, I want you to write.
Okay.
And I felt this, like, I had tears on my face. Like, physically, I felt like something hit me, almost electric.
Yeah.
And I was like, what was that? What, like, I could not process what had just happened. To the point that once church started, I got up, I went to the back of the church, and I couldn't even come back in the sanctuary. I was just like, God, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
So I got home after church. My husband and I were standing in the kitchen, and he was like, what's going on with you? You know, what's wrong? And I said, I don't know how to explain it. And I'm like, but I can't deny it. I'm like, in church, you know, God said to me, he literally said to me the words, June, I want you to write. And he goes, okay.
Yeah.
And I said, but what? I've been writing my whole life, right? You know, I wrote poetry, I wrote lyrics, I've written plays, I've done all that. So it's my escape mechanisms.
Right.
You know, I'm like, God said he wants me to write. I don't know what to do. And he's like, you're right.
Just right. Don't you love those one-liners?
Yeah.
God just gives, and then you have to seek him for the rest, or just move in it, and it starts to come to you as you go. So
simple. I mean, it was so simple. I want you to write. I had a friend, Vondell, one time say to me, because I said for a year, I was just like, what? What is it? What is it? What is it? Like every extra breath that I had, every quiet moment that I had, it was just, God, what do you want me to write? What is it? What is it? What is it? What is it? And he goes, you mean to tell me the God of the universe told you one thing, June, write. And you didn't think if you sat down at a table with a pen, he could make you write what he wanted you to write? And I was like, oh, man, a whole year and all I had to do is pick up a pen? That's crazy. But one day I was going to work, and he said to me, it's comedy. And it was that clear, as clear as he had said, I want you to write. I was on my way to work. I was working in special education. I had a business, sold this business, had a little extra change in my pocket. And the two jobs that I loved the most before, I worked in radio. Okay. And then I did programs for the Housing Authority in Bowling Green. And I worked with kids for about 7 years. And I loved that job because, you know, it was a community I grew up in. I would be driving kids back to the same street that, you know, that I grew up on. Yeah. And I knew that, like, I didn't want to work in radio at the time because of my kids' age and what it entails. But I'd worked with kids before. And so God had called me into working with kids with special needs. Oh, okay. And I love that job, you know. And I was just heading to that job that I loved. And he says, it's comedy. You know, and I'm like, stand-up comedy, like zany on the mic comedy, like exactly. No, my friend Marlo says when she heard the call from God, she lovingly hung up because she was pretty sure he called the wrong girl. And that's where I was. I was like, no, you know. And my mom always said, don't ask for a sign. Never ask for a sign, you know. But I was like, God, this is so out of the box. I am 40-something years old. I got grown kids, you know. My life is kind of set right now where I'm at. Like, I'm going to pretty much need you to give me a sign.
Can I get a billboard sign?
Yes.
Like, I definitely asked for sign.
Well, I instead of a billboard, I got a dually truck. That's what I got. I got to the red light. It turned green. I looked both ways. Didn't seem like anybody was coming, right? Mm-hmm. Because I always look. And I pull out. And when I pull out, this dually truck, I guess his brakes went out. He blew through his red light and almost took the front off of my Camry.
Wow.
Yeah, and I was like, okay, God, no more signs. Like, no more signs. I don't need a sign. And from that point on, it was like, okay, you got to show me. I don't know how to do this. No one in my town was a stand-up comedian that I knew of. Yeah. And if they were, they weren't a Christian comedian. Right. And I knew that was the area he was calling me into. And I, someone asked me this the other day, and I had said, I gave him excuses, right? I was like, I can't do it because I'm this age. I can't do it because I don't know how to do it. I can't. And I said, what I thought I was given was excuses, right?
Yeah.
But God was like, that's not an excuse.
Yeah.
That's a prayer request. I'm going to answer that request.
I like that.
Yeah. And he
I
answered
like
all
that.
of my excuses as if it was a prayer request. Oh, you don't think your husband will understand? Guess what? He's going to be the biggest supporter you've ever had. Oh, you don't know anybody who can do that? How about I give you 3 of the top Christian comedians in the country to come alongside you and teach you how to do this?
Wow.
There's a convention where Christian comedians get together every single year. How about we have it in Nashville in your back door? Yeah. Oh, and on your birthday weekend, June. How about it's on your birthday so you can't even pretend like it doesn't have anything to do with you?
Yeah.
And he just, every obstacle that I put up, every excuse that I had, he just went, nope, just swatting flies. You're cute. No, you're doing this thing.
Wow.
And yeah, so here I am. 2017 was when I went to the CCA for the first time. 2018 is the first time that I did an open mic, just went on stage, and it was at the CCA. I did a 2-minute bit, and I had the most love and support, people
Really?
around me. Met my best friend in comedy that day, the one that I do a podcast with now.
Okay.
Was right there cheering me on the first time that I went on stage, and it's been a crazy journey. It hasn't been easy, but it's been, God wasn't playing when he said, I have something for you to do, and he's just made a way for it to happen. Yeah.
That's absolutely awesome. It seems to be consistent when God tells you to do something and you know it's God. It's so much bigger than what you believe that you're capable, that you're not capable of doing it, because he has to do it through you.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, I say he could have picked the funniest person in the family to do this, the same way that he could have picked, I guess, the toughest guy to take down Goliath, right?
True.
But then who shines?
Exactly.
If Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson beat somebody up, everybody's like, okay, well that makes sense. But
that's a no-brainer, right?
If your 98-year-old 50-pound grandma does it, then you're like, only God could have pulled that off,
Exactly.
right? So I think he definitely works in our weakness, and he, it's biblical that's where he shines the most. Is like, there's what? That makes no sense that she's doing that. I'm like, well, it doesn't. I guess that's what God's working through, is, to use somebody that doesn't make sense that it was me,
Yeah. So you had already, your relationship with Christ is already, that foundation was laid before you went into comedy? Or did comedy did he tell you this is the direction that I want you to go in with comedy? Like, how did he specify how to use this in what I like to say ministry, because we all minister in some way based off of what we're called to do, and our designs and our talents and our gifts.
Yeah. I would say, people talk about there's the babies in Christ, right? And then you're crawling, then you're kind of middle school, high school, and at a certain point you got to grow up and be an adult. When he called me into comedy, I had been through a lot of stuff. I had walked away from the church for a long time, because when you grow up the way that I did, when he called me into really pushing on my heart, going, you gotta get a church home. You gotta get a church home. I argued with him. I'm like, why do I need a church home? Like, I can pray God anywhere. I did all those things. I can pray where I want to pray. I can worship, in any place. I don't have to be there to pray. I don't have to be there to worship. And the Holy Spirit was like, okay, cool. When exactly are you praying and worshiping? Yeah. And then he laid on my heart that it was family. It was a family that I needed. And so I went through the laundry list of God, you already gave me one dysfunctional family. I don't need another one. I'm still dealing. I got Hot Dog and Mo, and I don't need another dysfunctional family. But then I started telling God about his people. You know what I mean? I started telling him, I was like, do you even know your people? They think they're better than other people. They look down on people. Your people are judgmental.
Wow.
And this was one of those times that the Holy Spirit went right back at me, and he goes, wow, sounds like you'll fit right in with my people. Ouch, right? Ouch. I was like, and I was doing to those people what I thought they were doing to me to protect myself from those people, and God was just kind of like, how about you just sit down where I tell you to sit, and let's just see what happens, And the struggle was real, man. It was real. I really had to kind of deal with some baggage that I've been carrying. Because when your mom is socially stops developing at 12 years old, she does some wacky, crazy stuff at church. She says stuff that puts people off. She's the crazy lady at church.
Yeah.
And man, when you're the kid who, I mean, I remember being under 10 years old the first time I realized the pastor was mocking my mom, was actually making fun of her.
Wow.
And so those things would stick with me, right? So then every pastor was like that pastor. Every church was like that church. Everybody was like the people that I went to one little church that like every Sunday the pretty people would go to Ponderosa.
Oh.
Right?
Okay.
And my mom was never invited. Mm. But we couldn't afford to go anyway.
Right.
We literally rolled pennies to have gas money to put in Bertha. That was the car's name. Bertha or Bessie. Bessie was another one.
Bessie.
Come on, Bessie, let's go, Bessie. Right? Mom would be doing the foot shuffle.
Yeah.
You got to pump the gas. You got to jump from. You got to hold the brake and let it go. And and so I would see all of those things. I would see her being left out. I would see me being accepted because I had already learned how to be that chameleon.
Yeah.
So somebody in the youth group would invite me to go home with them after church, and I'd go to Ponderosa and eat. And my mom would drive down the little hill back to the house, and knowing and listening to her change drop into the offering plate. And knowing how much we crushed cans, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I cleaned my first job was cleaning the bathroom at a bar. Because we lived next door to it, and the bartender, the guy who owned the bar, didn't want to clean the women's restroom because it was gross. Mm. And that would be gas money for me to go to church.
Wow.
Yeah, for me to get to go to youth group. I'd have some people pick me up and that kind of stuff, but when Mom would go, it was just different. So then I would have that guilty on me, as I became an adult, I invited her to come to the church I started going to, but I warned the pastor right away. I'm like, anybody look at her sideways, I'm gone.
Right.
I was ready for the battle.
Yeah,
I was ready to fight anybody not embrace the crazy in my mom. Then you're going to see the crazy in Junebug, and I'm out of here. That's where I was in life. But he had set me in that church pew for several years. I was probably sitting there a good 7 or 8 years. I mean, I don't think I joined the church for almost 7 years.
Oh, okay.
Because it was I was holding it back from those people. Those people don't get all of that of me. Once I've joined the church, now I'm part of these people, and I don't, And so it caused me, when he called me into Christian comedy, it caused me to have to mature more in my walk in my faith. Because the first thing I was like, God, I can't quote Bible verses. I tell Bible stories like a 5-year-old. That's how I still process it when I read the Word of God, and when a donkey talks and that kind of stuff. I'm still like, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Y'all get this?
A
donkey's talking, and I discover stuff, and it's like a 5-year-old child. So that was my insecurity. I'm like, you don't want me talking to people about God. I still drink wine.
Yeah.
What if I have a glass of wine and now, everybody's going to go to hell because I told a joke and I drank a glass of wine.
No.
It was all this crazy mixed up mess in my head. But God was still like, we're going to work all that out. Just listen to me. We're going to start writing these jokes. We're going to start preparing you for this thing that I've called you to do. So it made me take my faith more seriously,
right?
Because I was going to stand in front of people and talk about this God that I love, I love the Lord. I just was not mature in my walk at all. And that was really scary to me. I tell people if you want to increase your prayer life, walk into a room with 500 strangers and try to make them laugh.
Oh, yeah, I can imagine.
You sat behind the stage just, okay, here we go. So I prayed, and I still do. He still puts me in a lot of uncomfortable situations, a lot of shows where I'm like, what am I doing here? They're going to eat me alive, and I have to lean on him. So it's made me stronger in my faith, stronger in my walk, but I'm not never been the poster child for, and there's no, perfect Christian. But I definitely wasn't the poster child for a mature Christian.
Yeah.
I would tell people the only thing I'm an expert on is Junebug.
Yeah.
That's the only thing I'm an expert on. I'm an expert on Junebug and what God's done in my life.
Yeah.
And that's enough for the Lord to use us. He can start right there with us, Then and the first thing he gave me was a a Bible verse. He said, okay, you need a Bible verse to memorize. Here's a verse. And I'm telling you, I am horrible about memorizing the verses. I try, but it's just the thing my brain doesn't latch onto is the specific of it. But I'm a storyteller.
Yeah.
You start, if you're like, oh, you remember so-and-so in the Bible, I lock up. It's a test anxiety. I'm like, sure I do. But as soon as you're like, oh, that's the one who her husband was like a jerk, and King David was out here and he needed some provision, and then she showed up and he died of a heart. I'm like, oh, I know that story. I know.
Put a little flavor with it.
I know that story. I could do that. But what's crazy is like God didn't need me to have all the verses memorized. He's like, just start with your story. And then he's like, here's one. So he gave me Galatians 5:1. And it's for freedom. Christ has set us free. Stand firm and don't be burdened by the yoke of slavery. And when he gave me that verse, I started thinking about what is that yoke? What is that thing that holds us back, right?
Yeah.
And it could be so different for everybody. And, for me, it was that insecurity.
Yeah.
It was that not feeling like the smartest girl or the most equipped to do the job that I'm doing. Yeah. There was slavery to, unforgiveness. There were people and things that I needed to forgive and I needed to let go of. But I'm a visual person too. And that made me, when it said it's for freedom, he set us free. Like just that part of it.
Yeah.
I realized like he's gone to the cross for us to be free, to set us free.
Yeah.
And I thought, how many times have I walked in this yoke of slavery to a lie, to to my own personal sins, to, these things that like he died for. And I imagine like my kid, and it's so weird how your brain works, but like I imagine my kid and like my kid being outside in the front yard. And it's pouring down rain and it's cold and they're uncovered. They're just exposed to everything. And they don't have to be. I'm like, I'm right here. Yeah. It's for your freedom that we have this home. It's for your safety. It's for your security that I've set you free. And then I thought, man, I am not respectful of the cross.
Wow.
When I allow myself to walk in this fear, this shame, this unforgiveness, that's holding me back, when I had someone who died for that, yet I'm still choosing to go lay out in the yard in pain, in the rain, and he's like, it's freedom. I gave this to you to have freedom. Yeah. So when I find myself, and that's the one verse right away, he just gave me that, and it means so many different things to me at different places. And I know when the Lord, when God wrote the Bible, he wasn't like, now June, what does this mean to you? He's speaking to somebody in a specific time for a specific reason. Right. But I also believe that a verse can apply to your life in different ways and different moments, and it can speak. It's real. It's alive. It's living, right? Yes. So, yeah, that's kind of been my journey. It's made me have to really pray harder. It's made me have a hunger for the word, to want to know more about it. And it's made me more excited about it because I took it more seriously. I think that if God called someone to be a, aerobics instructor and to be a spokesperson for good health, they get more serious about what they're eating. Right. You know what I mean? Right. And what they're doing. So for me, it's like, oh man, I'm going to stand in front of people. And there's a whole debate about, are you a comedian that's a Christian or a Christian comedian? And a lot of people think Christian comedians just do church jokes, and you've got some really famous people, Shonda Pierce, Michael Jr., Tim Hawkins. They do a lot of Christian culture humor, but that's not how I grew up. Okay. So I tell people I call myself a Christian comedian because that's what God called me. Yeah. That's what he told me to call myself. But I don't necessarily do Christian content. Yeah. Sometimes it's not digestible for people. That was my biggest fear. Like, is the church going to want to hear about mowing hot dog? Yeah. Are they going to? And I've had gigs. I've had moments where someone's questioned me because I talked about my dad's alcoholism, and they're like, "Are you really a Christian?" Yeah. Because you said beer. Oh. Like, well, but here's what I know. I know my comedy's not for everybody, but I know God created me to do it for somebody. Yes. And there's somebody who needs to hear these goofy stories about my crazy life and know that I've been through all of that and I'm not happy. I have joy.
Yeah.
You know, happiness is temporary, but I want them to see like where that joy comes from. So
yeah.
He'll use us.
So do you see yourself in this field of comedy? Is that going to be, and I know a lot of times God will give us only enough for the season that we're in right now, but has he shown you any other lanes that you're wanting to take with the comedy? Or is this just kind of like your sit still season? You're just growing in this place right now?
You know, with the way my brain's wired, I'm never sitting still in anything. I'm going 1,000 miles an hour and I can get way ahead of myself. Acting is definitely something that I know is going to be something in the future.
Yes.
You know, you and I met through a group called UCAC with TC Stallings. Amazing mentor. I said, I didn't realize how much that was going to apply to my comedy.
Yes.
You know, without having a role in a film or a commercial or, you know, whatever, learning the example of being uncompromised in any part of our craft is, you know, pretty important. And acting is very parallel to comedy. I've always loved to act. That's been a thing that I've loved to do. But I did a talk one time called Good Idea, God Idea. And sometimes we have really good ideas and I don't think God gets mad about it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But the fruit comes when it's God's idea. And so there are things that I think he wastes nothing. So there's a reason he has me in that acting group.
Yes.
And I'm learning from that. In the future, I am hoping, so I've got a book. I met with a publishing coach actually just a couple of days ago. I've been working on a book for years, and it's all the stories of growing up with Mo and Hot Dog. And it starts with meeting my sister Leslie.
Okay.
And one of the things she said was, man, I wish I knew what it was like to grow up with y'all. Because we met as adults, you know, as mothers and parents, and we have kids, and, you know, and her childhood was different than our childhood. And I was like, man, one of the first things when God said, write, I just started writing these stories of my family.
Yeah.
Thinking like, who's ever going to read this, you know? And now it's come to the point where all of those stories are going to come together in a book.
Wow.
Right now, the working title is Memoirs of a Hoobilly.
I love
and I know I said wires because I can't help it. I'm like, I want to spell it memoir, W-I-R-E.
Yeah.
But hopefully, what I feel like God's showing me, because over and over again, when I do shows, I have friends that are film writers. I have friends that are comedians. I hear, man, this needs to be a sitcom. This has got to be a sitcom.
Oh, yeah.
And it really is kind of I say if you took Andy Griffith, Everybody Hates Chris, and My Name is Earl.
Okay.
And you put it all together. That's kind of my family. There's like this little wholesome 700 town, you know, population, Shirley, Indiana, where I started my life, and you know, and then moved to Kentucky, and things became more countrified, and you know, all of that. But people find humor and relatability in all these crazy stories, you know.
Absolutely.
And so hopefully one day it'll be something, I don't know that I'll act in it, but once the book is written, it'll be easier to present that to some of my friends who can help me break it down into sitcom episodes. Because there's individual stories of me running away and nobody even knew I left.
Oh.
Family little. And then like my brother and I were shot at by a homeless person.
Oh,
and his last name was Rich. I always love that. I love names. I love it and the homeless guy named Rich, was having a bad day, and we just happened to be in the way. And and it sounds like, oh, that's horrible, but they're actually kind of funny stories when you survive it, right?
Watch it.
So hopefully that's maybe one day we'll see the Hoobilly Memoirs or Memoirs of a Hoobilly in sitcom episodes. Hopefully.
Even that he's expanding your vision, you know, into that lane. And as she spoke before, we have met through the UCAC program, so we want to give a little shout out to TC Starling.
That's right.
It's a great program for anyone creative, not just actors, but behind the scenes, which is where my passion is. And you never know what God is doing. You know, you never know. Yeah. But if that's something that you enjoy doing or that you're interested in, it's a amazing group of people and a support system that is hinged on not compromising.
Right.
But staying true to who you are in Christ while doing what he called you to do. Yeah. As like I always like to say, your ministry, because ministry looks different. Yeah. It's not always just standing, behind the pulpit, but he calls us to go out into the world and do comedy and talk shows. And even in what I'm doing right now, just listening to your story, how God works, his signature is just so... He says, my people know my voice, right? So I'm listening to you. I'm like, that sounds just like God. He always calls you to do something that's bigger than you can do. And then he'll kind of pull you into a section or lane of it that you're not comfortable. Yeah. I'm like, why me? And even when you start to talk about in school, that talking all the time. I'm like, well, a talk show? He's like, because you like to talk, Yeah. And every report card is in the comments, talks too much. Yes. Very talkative, can't do her work and talk.
Which was what grade? That was our conduct grade.
Oh yeah,
which
conduct.
For anyone under at least probably 35, they stopped having conduct grades a long time ago. But if you were like me, I never had straight A's because of the conduct grade.
And then the parents is just like, quit talking so much. You need but don't let there be a conversation going on. It's interesting or someone I'm turned around. I'm into it. Because I want to hear the story. I want to hear what happened. I want to put my 2 cents in, and I want to, I want to get into it. So that's just always also been my passion, just understanding the story behind something, meeting people, and I'm intrigued by their journeys and how they got to where they are, because God's given me a vision of how people fit in to the overall picture, which is why I do love the behind the scenes so much, because I like to see the story come to life. Yeah. So, but he will, again, put you in an uncomfortable position to stretch you. Yeah. For you to learn about yourself through him, and then to also trust him. Yeah. And to just really dig in when it comes to that faith. So, again, the UCAC program, which is the Uncompromising Christian Actors, through TC Starling, it started that. We met each other, and me and June we connected immediately. Yeah. We didn't even know we lived in the same state. No. So, and she was so gracious to come and do this interview today. And, she's all over the world, she's doing really big things. So you guys check her out. Where can they find you at?
Oh gosh, everything is Junebug Comedy. So you can go to junebugcomedy.com. My social media, Instagram, Facebook, all of that. It's Junebug Comedy. And I think it's Junebug Clean Comedy on YouTube. Okay. There's so many platforms. Okay. I'm not good at keeping up with all of them.
She's out here. She's got all kinds of stuff going on.
Most consistent with Instagram and Facebook, because that's the easiest for me to post on and do things like that. But yeah, junebugcomedy.com. You can find my show schedules and what I got going on there.
And then also maybe some of your social media bits that you've already done. If they just want to go and watch you, they can catch you on YouTube and Instagram is what you're saying. And then
that's right. And then I have a podcast called Laugh Support, life support.
Tell us about that.
But Laugh Support. And so it's on Instagram, and you can watch it on YouTube, but it's on all major podcast platforms. And that's where I get to interview comedians with my best friend, who I told you was here at the very beginning of my journey. Her name is Michelle Van Dusen.
Hi, Michelle.
Yeah, and Michelle's part of the UCAC group. She's phenomenal, and she's been acting, gosh, since she was a kid. She's been in that world for a really long time. But yeah, you can go and watch Laugh Support. And we talk about the different shows and crazy things that happen there. So a lot of comedians or new comedians like to listen to it because they're listening to other comedians' experiences. But also, it's just cool to hear people's background stories. What we do is, rather than being like, oh, how long have you done comedy and those kind of things, because there's a podcast where people are asking comedians that question, we ask them who's been their support. And it's almost like a this is your life type moment where they get to think about, wow, when I began, this person was there and that person was there. And they really kind of backtrack to the different phases. And some of them are like nobody.
Yeah.
It was just me and God. I felt that plenty of times in the comedy journey, because what you can expect is when God gives you a calling, not everybody's going to get it.
Yeah.
Not everybody's going to understand the call that's on your life. And that's okay. And I will tell you, the enemy attacks you with your inner circle.
Oh.
Because if somebody in, Muleshoe, Texas is like, she ain't funny.
Right.
Okay, Bob, I don't care what you think,
Exactly.
But if your own grandmother or your sister or your pastor or your neighbor is like, what's she trying to do? Who does she think she is? That's where the enemy tries to come after you, And so anyway, I love getting to hear those stories of people's calling, doing the thing that God called them to do, and the strength that they've found in just leaning into Christ on the call in their life. Because really all that matters is what we do for him, and all that matters is how he feels about us. Even when I come off stage and bomb, they call it bombing for a reason. It's brutal. The language in comedy, it's bombing, it's dying, like even if we do well, we kill somebody, you kill, you know. You can come off and feel like, because when we tell stories and we expose our life and ourself, it can be really easy to feel like a rejection of ourselves. Yeah. When really, I had to ask God in the beginning, when I started getting into the spiral of watching all this social media, this and that, whatever. You'll see, it's ADHD social media for Junebug. Junebug comedy is like, oh, well, she made tacos out of bacon today. That's great. June, what does that have to do with anything? I don't know. Yeah. But people are like, you got to post this many times. You got to do this. You'll get that in acting or any other career. And so finally I was like, God, what is success to you? Yeah. What is successful to you? And he was like, just yes. Oh, that's success. Wow. Just your yes. Just when I ask you to do something and you say yes. It's not about how many people follow me on social media. Yeah. It's not about how many people are in the seats in the shows. I've done shows for 10 people. And I've now got to stand in front of, we were talking the other day, maybe the biggest crowd I stood in front of was over 1,000 people. Okay. And now I consistently get to do shows on a tour where they have 500 or 600 people on stage, or 500 or 600 people in the audience. It's not about any of that. Yeah. He's shown me it's about one. There's going to be one person in that room, whether it's a room of 10 or whether it's a room of 1,000. I have you there. There's at least going to be one person there that you were supposed to be there for. Right. So on the times that I go and I crash and I burn and I fail, sometimes the one person is just me. He's just working on something in me. He's like, it's really easy to do a calling on your life when it's easy. And I know people think, oh, that's got to be a fun job. You tell jokes. The anxiety is real. Yeah. And a lot of comedians go into it because they have a really broken background. They've dealt with depression. They've had some really hard things in their life. And we're doing the thing that most people say is this biggest fear that they have outside of death, right? Is standing in front of people, in front of strangers. And I tell people, Michael Jr., I think, is the one who I heard this from, said, you don't have to worry about going out and making people laugh. You can give them an opportunity to laugh, and they can do with it what they want. Yeah. And some people are not going to take the opportunity. But and so now I'll tell audiences, I'm not going to force you to laugh. I mean, I'm not jumping down there and tickling everybody. Right. They're like, either laugh or don't. But this is what I have to give you. These are my stories, and hopefully we have fun. Yeah. So.
I love that. So, as we close, would you like to, if there's anyone out there that is trying to determine their purpose, and they're wanting to know exactly what God has for them, they may be second guessing themselves, just seeking their space with him. Are they hearing from him, or is it just in their imagination? Yeah. Is there a word of encouragement that you can give to our listeners about following their purpose?
That's really good. Okay, so 2 things come to mind. I could not hear the call of my life until I could recognize God's voice. When I was a little girl, I lived in a town in Shirley, and we had the party line. Do you remember the party lines where you pick up and a bunch of people? Yeah, we had the little party line or whatever, and my cousin and I would always get in trouble because there's a little old lady always on the phone. You'd have to be fighting to get on there, that little click or whatever. But it wasn't phones that identify who somebody is when they're calling you.
Yeah.
Right. But if my grandma's phone rang, so we didn't have a phone at home, but if I was at my grandma's and the phone rang and I said hello and someone said, hey, where's Doris? Or they said, where's Mama Doris? Or where's Mom? Or where's Grandma? Whatever. I didn't have to say, who is this? Because it was my family. It was people that I love. It was people I spoke to all the time. So if it was my cousin Mike, I'd be like, Mama, Mike's on the phone,
Yeah.
Mama, Daddy just called. He needs to talk to you, whatever. I recognize the voice because I talk to them all the time. I spend time with them in a relationship with them. If you're wanting to know what God's call is on your life, a lot of people have the Bible sitting as a prop. It's a decoration on your table. And they're going, God, I can't hear you. I can't hear you. I can't hear you. And he's like, pick up the phone.
Yeah.
Pick up the phone. If you want to hear from him, it's going to be hard to know who it is when you pick up the phone if you don't spend time listening to his voice. And the more you read his word, the more you hear his voice, the more you're going to recognize whether it's him or not.
Yeah.
Right? And he's never going to call you to do something outside of what he's placed in his word. He was never going to call me, hey, June, I want you to do comedy because laughter is medicine, right? It's good medicine. But do it however you want to.
Yeah.
You can talk about any subject. As long as you make him laugh, right? He's not going to call you to do something that's outside of his character.
Yeah.
So if you want to know I think if you want to know the will of God on your life, then you gotta recognize his voice. So spend time with him, talk to him, listen to his word, recognize it. Also, you're gonna have to trust especially if you're not in the word, the more you read it, the things that jumped out on the pages to me when he was calling me into this was, wow, you use messed up people, right? He used so many messed up people. One, because that's all he's got to work with.
Right.
We're all messed up, right? But he used some of the most messed up people to do some of the most amazing things. I was driving home from work after God revealed this to me. I was going to do, somebody asked me to do a women's event, and I was scared to death, man. I was like, oh gosh, I don't know if I could do that or not. And on the way home, I was struggling with all those insecurities. And there was a sunset. It was a beautiful sunset.
Yeah.
Beautiful colors in the sky, the bold purples and golds and all of that. And I was like, oh, God, that's beautiful. You're really showing off tonight, right?
Yeah.
To have this conversation with him. And then I'm like, you know what I heard, though? Well, I heard that the reason why the sunsets are so beautiful is because of the pollution in the sky.
Oh.
And the more pollution in the sky, the prettier the sunsets.
Wow. I never heard that.
I'd heard that. I'd heard somebody say that, and I was like, that messes up the sunset for me, right?
Oh,
like
no.
it was so pretty, God, but now I'm kind of like, well, I don't know if it's that good, right? And if scientifically, if you look it up, there is some truth to that. There are certain types of pollution that actually reflects the color. Some makes it dimmer, but there are some that makes it brighter and more vivid, right? So I tell God, I'm like, I don't know that it looks that pretty to me anymore.
Yeah.
And I felt the Holy Spirit say, you're not looking at it right. Let's say that is pollution. Look what I can do with pollution. And I was like, wow, all of us have pollution in our life. And I like to share this with women and men. All of us have pollution in our life, right? We have muck, we have dirt and dust, and we have grime. And what he showed me with that sunset is what he can do with pollution. So like my pollution was growing up, with addiction, with mental health issues in my family, with poverty, with insecurities, with, my parents, they were wrapped up in their own kind of mess.
Yeah.
So they didn't pay attention to their little girl.
Yeah.
Which then there were men who were predators who did.
Yeah.
That was pollution in my life. Yeah. Which then caused pollution in my understanding of love and relationships. So I end up in, polluted place in a marriage. And if not for God, we're about to celebrate this year. It'll be 30 years, but it's only because of God's grace. Yes. But I say that because anybody who's watching this, if they're looking for what is that call in our life, don't Listen, be in the Word, recognize His voice, but also know that there is nothing you have done, there's nothing that's been done to you that God can't use to glorify Him. He can take that pollution and He can make something so pretty out of it.
Wow.
But not if we hang on to it. You just got to give it to Him and let Him light up the sky. You know?
I like that. Let Him light up the sky.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, I want to say thank you for coming. I think that's a great place to end. And thanks for sharing your story with us, letting us see what God can do.
Yeah.
And it's a success story. So, again, she's giving you guys the information where you can find her on social media. Can you tell them one more time?
Yeah, just Junebug Comedy. You'll find me at Junebug Comedy.
Junebug
That's where I'm at.
Okay, and get out there and check out some of her live stand-up as well. And if you are looking for a space to commune with other creatives, UCAC is a great place, which is where we met. Again, ran by TC Starling. He's a great coach. And again, I believe it's also good to connect with people who are like-minded and want to do what it is they're called to do for Christ. And if you're not ashamed and you don't want to compromise, it is a great place. And this is an amazing example of what happens when you serve God in an uncompromising way. June Colson. So thank you again for joining us on the Tiara to You talk show. Thank you.